Good afternoon and welcome, everybody. This would be the Jeff Cameron Show right here on 97.9 ESPN Radio. It is great to be with you. Happy Lawn Maintenance Tuesday. And before we go any further, choo-choo! Florida State on to the Sweet 16 again. Third straight year, would have been 4 had last year not been yanked from the possibility because of the coronavirus pandemic. But let's not get mired down in those details because there's more positive things to focus on right now, and that is that this team, despite being somewhat disjointed, certainly struggling to find consistency on offense, finds a way yet again and gets it done, this time with a really, really robust effort on the defensive end. And they're going back to the Sweet 16, facing a familiar foe in Michigan. That game will take place on Sunday. And I think that most within the sound of my voice here listening to this have got to admit that they're somewhat surprised and awfully proud of this Florida State program winning the way that they did in these two games, given the fact that they're clearly not the team they were offensively a month ago. This is a team that, for whatever reason, and there are reasons, not excuses, but reasons, this exists. I always struggle with people who don't seem to be able to differentiate the two. They've got a lot of guys banged up that aren't playing nearly as well as they played earlier this year when everybody was in sync and they were growing and moving in the right direction offensively. But boy, did they dedicate themselves defensively here in this tournament so far, and it's given them an opportunity to go back to the Sweet 16 for the third consecutive year for Florida State. That's a program record, and it's with great consistency in which, probably reveals that that mindset's possible, right? I mean, they don't have to be great to go pretty far in this thing, and it's a tournament where a lot of really great teams who had tremendous regular seasons and a lot of talent that projects very well to the next level find themselves at home, but not Florida State. They're still here. There is a toughness to this team, a mentality that permeates the program and now carries them through the ups and downs of a long season into this tournament where there's an awful lot of pressure. You know, the tournament is cruel for all but one. One team's left standing at the end. And I said yesterday on the program, I'm not so sure this is always the best way to decide a champion. It's certainly the most entertaining, but it's not always revelatory in that it doesn't necessarily identify. Sometimes it does. Like Gonzaga goes on to win this thing. They've been great all year long, and people will say, well, they were the best team all year long and they won it. But that's not always the case, right? Sometimes great teams, really good teams that you could argue were the best team throughout the course of a regular season, have a bad night at the office. And they're sent packing just like that. They don't play best 4 out of 7 here. They don't play best 3 out of 5. This is, you get one shot. So the pressure is intense. And Florida State, not playing their best brand of basketball heading into the tournament, has found a way to win 2 games and go to the Sweet 16. And it's funny that despite all the advancements of this program and the ability to now recruit elite skill, real talent, not just size, but real talent and a depth of talent, and to go toe-to-toe with the Blue Bloods and to go toe-to-toe and win your fair share of these recruiting battles. Despite all of that, in truth, it was a return to form defensively that led to this moment. It was an embracing of the old school mentality, the old school junkyard mentality, in which you contest everything and you make it extremely difficult for opposing teams to score until you find your way offensively. The defense will lead to the offense. You'll find a way. And boy, in the second half, that's what happened. Florida State scores 47 points in that second half, turns this game into a laugher. It's very rare that when you're playing these games of this magnitude against a good team, and we've seen the Pac-12 not only acquit themselves well, but make a grand argument for being the best conference in college basketball. If this tournament reveals anything, it's certainly that the Pac-12 is underrated. The Big Ten has stubbed its toe despite having so many players that people thought certainly would make a run to an Elite Eight or a Final Four, no longer involved in this tournament. The Pac-12 has emerged to where only Colorado stumbles thanks to Florida State, Leonard Hamilton, his coaching staff, and the consistency and the trust and the diversity and the unselfishness. And I'm talking about, when I talk about diversity, I'm talking about the different styles of play that Florida State can adapt at any given moment. The ability to go small or to play big or to play fast or to play slow, to do all the things necessary in a given night to win a basketball game when maybe you're not at your best. And, man, last night, defensively, what you watched was a clinic. That ends up being, I mean, think about that Colorado team now. They came into this game having scored 96 points against Georgetown, flying high. They were 16 of 25 from beyond the arc in that game. And so a lot of people, myself included, Tom and I talking about it yesterday, wondered, could you slow them down? Could you score enough right now with as inconsistent a play as we're seeing on the offensive end to win this game? And you know, guys, if you listened all year long, I've kind of pushed this narrative that when Florida State scores somewhere near the 80s or into the 80s, they're going to win. And that's true. Statistically, that's what happens. But we wondered, would it be enough against a Colorado team that's really scoring and against the Florida State team that's struggling? And I kind of overlooked a little bit, that they can be that kind of great on defense. And as it turned out, that's what they relied on and really dominated this game.
Yeah, if you look at the metrics in the regular season of field goal percentage, defense, and things like that, Florida State's been really, really good all year. But this effort to me was a little bit different. Like UNCG, the fact that defense is the talking point coming out of that game, I think it's because we won a tournament game and you're looking for something positive to talk about. So you're talking about the defense. In this game, you don't have to look for a positive. There's a lot of positives. The individual effort of MJ Walker, is he vintage MJ? No, but he takes 3 charges. He plays efficient basketball. He even shows explosiveness towards the rim a couple of times, which was great. All these things mixing together to create that picture. But the overall thing that you're bragging on, and the overall thing that gives you excitement and legitimate hope that after Sunday, the tip-off against Michigan at 5 o'clock, that we could still be playing, it is that defensive effort.
Yeah.
Because there was a very specific task here in order to stop Colorado. And Leonard talked about the guard play, McKinley Wright, how you're going to have to get the ball away from him as they bring it up the court. Right, ball denial. To me, the number one thing was the extension at the three-point line, and that requires so much in the way of rotations, minding your P's and your Q's, having the chemistry of you and maybe 1 or 2 other guys in a single possession. You've got to know when you're switching. You got to know when to contest and to extend. They did that so well, man. The scout on Colorado was real. That wasn't a fluke that they hit 16 three-pointers, because they were the second-best team in the field at catch-and-shoot opportunities that were unguarded. If you leave them open, they hit the shot.
They hit him down. Yeah, knock him down.
Hardly left them open. That's so hard to do for 40 minutes, and I'm just thoroughly impressed.
Well, and we get back to a point here that because you rely so heavily on your defense, that eventually it affects in a positive way this offense, which has been slow to come around. It's why I thought they'd lose last night. I said yesterday on the show I thought they'd lose because this offense has been so erratic, so turnover prone, and guys that you relied upon most of the season have not been themselves down the stretch. See the Notre Dame game, see the Georgia Tech game, see the first game in this tournament. They've had moments where you just think, God, that's not even the same player. It's so frustrating to watch. And that led to a lack of confidence for guys that had been really, really good and somewhat of a catalyst for you most of the year. So it was hard to project that they were going to suddenly shake the shackles of that frustration and the lack of confidence that we saw. But when you fall back to playing great defense, when you go back to playing junkyard dog defense, to when you commit yourself collectively to play dominant defense, it can lead you to a 24-20 halftime score, the lowest point total of the year for Florida State at halftime, right? And you're not shook and you're not out of the game, because Colorado had their lowest point total of the season as well. They're going to the locker room, if not for a last-second tip and turnover, which has plagued this offense for Florida State. They would have scored fewer than 20 points in this game to start the half, in the first half. So both teams go in kind of shaking the cobwebs about the offense. But Florida State's not shrinking. Florida State's going to be big, and Colorado's going to have to find a way to score. And it seemed much more ominous of a task for that group to try to score against Florida State than it would be for Florida State to score against Colorado. Those halftime stats are bleak for both teams. I mean, we were 9 of 22, but we were 4 of 11 from 3. And when you've gone over in your previous game, 4 of 11 feels like a bounty. Oh, we hit the jackpot. We saw some go through the hoop early. And it was Polite, and it was Osborne hitting those shots. And you go, okay, Okay, so we're getting contributions from those two guys. It's been a while. All right, here we go. And then from there, the pressure remained relentless in the second half. And once that happened, the lead gets extended. And I thought early on, Tom, it was eerily similar. It's 28-20. We're under the 18-minute mark. And you think, you're close, guys. They're at a breaking point. I mean, they are mentally at a breaking point. Remember what we talked about on this show before where we were frustrated. I thought Tech was at a breaking point in the ACC championship game, and we let them off the hook, and the bastards took advantage of it. I thought there were moments over the last 4 or 5 games. I mean, hell, you were on the verge of boat racing UNC Greensboro. They were about to get run out of the gym in the same way Colorado did in this game. And yet you let them hang around and begin to believe you were terrible, convoluted, inconsistent offensively. And the next thing you knew, UNC Greensboro had cut it to a basket, and you thought, oh, we're in for a war. And so at 28-20 in this game, I'm like, guys, you could beat their ass. For as bad as things have been offensively, you could run away with this thing. And yet, here we go. Next thing you know, it's 28-25, and you're frustrated again, and you're going, are we going to do this again?
And they've got the firepower to go on a 12-0 run in a minute 30 because of what they can do beyond the arc.
Yeah,
yes.
And you're just wondering. But in the end, Florida State gets a great game, obviously, collectively, defensively. But then you get the offensive star, which is Anthony Polite, and a big doffing of the cap to him. There's a kid who's done everything that's been asked of him. He's improved steadily since he's been here. He got more confident last year. Obviously, we saw as the year went on, that guy's emerging, and now you get this game. And you like to see good things happen to good people. That's true of Leonard Hamilton. That's true of his staff. And that's true of that young man.
Yeah, and again, it's just the headliner. It's hard to be this redundant on the opening segment, but it's that defensive effort, the comprehensive nature of what they were able to do. That's new. They've played good defense earlier this year, but they stuck with it in a way that had Leonard Hamilton beaming in his postgame. He's been very critical. Think about it. The night of Big Monday, they beat Virginia, and he says it's an indictment on our other efforts. He's mad about other games while they got the Virginia win. Right?
Yeah.
And then you've got a game like last night. Juxtapose it. What does he sound like? He says, I'm thrilled with the way we committed. We stuck with it. Mm-hmm. We were locked in. We had a game plan. We executed the game plan. I'm just so proud of the kids. He likes the way their mind is shaping up right now. They get a long break. It's a Sunday 5 p.m. tip against Michigan.
Yeah.
I think their bodies could use it. But Leonard likes the way that he's seeing what's going on behind their eyes. He's seeing commitment, and he's seeing focus, and he's seeing intensity. I don't think he felt that way after Greensboro. We found a way to make that game close. This is a different kind of effort, and it gives me a ton of hope this week.
And there are little signs. The second half being really the siren for this. But there are little signs they're about to play really well offensively. I keep coming back to this. There's a couple things that just stand out. They're not playing their best basketball, and they're in the Sweet 16. And there are teams with a 1 next to their name, a 2 next to their name, a 3 next to their name, and seeding that are sent home after having prolific seasons. This program has emerged now to where they don't have to be great all the time, and they just win because they have so many elements to play great basketball, and they're well coached, and they're mentally tough. And screw me for doubting them going into last night. I did not think they'd play very well. They were not trending in that direction. And so I'm not going to come on here and tell you I think they're going to play great when I don't. I'm going to tell you that I don't think they're going to play well. And for a half, I looked exactly right. They played terribly offensively.
Yeah. It's the age as old as, tales old as time for our program. If you're thinking back, everybody's tweeting and text messages and all that. This looks like 2011, 2009. That's what last night was in the first half. Because if they didn't turn the ball over, they'd be up by 20 at the break.
Frustrating.
Because the offense looked okay when they didn't turn it over, or the refs weren't calling some miserable offensive foul on the boards that I can't find.
Yeah.
Through 5 times of watching it.
That said, they do get it together in that second half. It is all born out of defensive basketball. When they were not turning the ball over, they did protect the ball much better as the game went on.
Yes, got a lot better.
Got a lot better protecting the basketball. And then, of course, they made shots. They say about the NBA all the time it's a make-or-miss league. Basketball in general, you got to make some shots. Eventually, you're going to have to score. And if you look at it, the final stats do reveal that there's a reason to be kind of excited, perhaps, about where this is going offensively. I do think, because even guys like MJ Walker, who's never been close to what he was in the second half of the season as opposed to the first, even MJ Walker, he scores 7 points, and you say, okay. Yeah, but man, 3 of 4 from the free throw line. He took those charges, 2 rebounds. He was completely under control, 3 assists, no turnovers. Okay, if that's all you can give me right now, give me that. Give me that. Don't turn it over. Don't force things. Don't do something you can't do. I understand you're hurt. Play smart.
Well, but if you look at, let's say, the last 4 games versus the previous 4 in MJ's season, he's driving to the basket at full speed more. He's doing it incrementally more. Last night, what do you think it was? 4 or 5 times?
Yeah, he did. And there are a couple times where he's challenging people at the rim. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe. And now they get this rest. Final stats to put a ribbon on a great night for Seminoles basketball. 9 players in the scorebook, 2 in double figures. Anthony Polite with the career high. What a night for him. 22 points, 8 of 12 from the field, 4 of 7 beyond the arc, 2 of 2 from the free throw line, 5 boards, 4 assists, 4 steals in just 28 minutes. Have yourself a night, young man. And far and away, gets the award for most improved player in his time here. I mean, he is now a viable player night in, night out for a program that has a lot of good players.
Oh, I can tell you with about 8 minutes to go in the first half, I'm saying, boy, I'd love for 2 to be back out there.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, where's 2? We need more 2.
Raekwon Gray scores 9 points. Wasn't great from the field last night. He's probably a little tired. He could use this rest. 5 of 7 from the free throw line, 6 rebounds, 2 assists. Did have 4 turnovers. I thought he looked a little winded last night.
He did, but active hands. He generated a lot of steals. And he doesn't always get credit for those if he gets his hand in a passing lane because somebody else completes the steal. Mm-hmm. But he had active hands in the half court last night.
I just mentioned MJ Walker's numbers plus those 2 charges on McKinley Wright. And he also had a big steal in this game that led to a transition basket. Balsa was frustrating to me most of the night. I'm still
45 seconds.
I'm still frustrated with Balsa right now. Some of his decisions on the floor just kill you because he puts himself in bad positions to draw fouls, and then he commits stupid fouls when he doesn't have to. He's too good a player. We need him. We desperately need him. That guy's got to make better decisions coming up against Michigan because this is a game where those bigs are going to be very, very important.
Well, and he performed really well against North Carolina in the tournament game. Like, I know that was an ugly game overall for the team, but that was a real war down low along the glass, and he played really well. That's what he's going to have to draw on because the challenge is real this upcoming weekend.
A couple of guys that we're realizing, I think they are where they are right now. There's something I'm going to talk about a little bit later that Raekwon Evans actually did great. Or did well, this one moment. He did something well. There's really 2 moments in this game where he did something well. I feel like they got to play him because of his experience. He is hard to watch. You look at this performance, he had 2 points. He was 0 of 2 from the field. He had a rebound. He had 0 assists as a guard. I feel like every time we check the box score with Raekwon Evans, there's a whole lot of nothing there, like absolutely nothing.
Got some free throws. That's it.
He made 2.
There we go.
So when you look at it, it's a little frustrating, but he did take a shot when he had to take the shot, and I know that it's baby steps. I'll explain why that was important later. But I acknowledge it, Raekwon. Thank you for taking the shot when you were wide open from the top of the key. Grant you it went over the stanchion, but you took the shot. I'll give you that. Malik Osborne, nicely done. 11 points, 9 in the first half. Sort of the catalyst. Scotty Barnes, deferring too much, not real healthy. Looked a little bit better. Certainly his vision is on display at all times. Those 5 assists are pretty.
Yeah, second half he got into a real rhythm, seeing the court beautifully. And I think it all started for him. It was actually the feed to Polite on the baseline. That was early in the second half. There was a breakdown and an opening, and it was almost like Polite was too wide open. But then once he pulled the trigger on that, right after, he had 3 or 4 passes that were just brilliant.
FSU is, not scoring the way that we have in the past, but we're also not giving up points. They're giving up 53 points a game in this tournament. You'll win most of the time. We'll hear from Leonard Hamilton in a moment. Jeff Cameron Show, 97.9 ESPN Radio. Man, I'm still giddy. I don't know if you're giddy, but I'm giddy. Just downright giddy.
Yeah, you're not coming into, like, Colorado, the way that they played on offense last night and the way we held them down. You know, if we played a little bit worse ourselves on offense and eked out a win, let's say it was 53-51, you'd probably enter Sunday thinking we don't have much to offer or bring to the table. But given that you had nearly a 50-point second half to go along with that defensive effort, and the challenge that Colorado presented, I'm going to be a broken record about that, but you had to do two things at once. You had to extend and stop the pick and roll. That's not easy. That's not that easy. We're coming with a weapon to this fight on Sunday. We've got something for Michigan now.
His name is Travis Light. Sorry. No, I think that just
not far up the depth chart is Nate Jack, and he got some minutes. So, there you go, Nate.
So it's a third straight Sweet 16 program record. Facing off against 1 seed Michigan, Bankers Life Fieldhouse, Sunday, 5 o'clock on CBS. Familiar foe from 2018. We played them in the Elite Eight. We were in the same regional in 2019. We were lined up to play in the Elite Eight again. We lost to Gonzaga, who was a 1. They lost in an upset to Texas Tech, who was a 3. This time around, we meet. And it's interesting because I've talked about it again. Now, we've seen some name programs and programs that have had huge seasons get sent packing, and a lot of them reside in the Big Ten, as we know. But think about this. USC beat Kansas in a way that is humiliating. I like that Andy Enfield-led USC team. Other than Florida State, they're the second best defensive team so far in this tournament. And it's marginal, the difference between the two.
Oh, no surprise.
85-61, worst ever NCAA tournament loss for Kansas. There was no magic in the wig that night, Tom.
Yeah.
Bill could not reach to the rug and find the key.
I got to give our former intern and our friend Ryan Kelly a little bit of credit because he says now that Florida State's advanced to the Sweet 16, you can flip over to a game featuring one of Leonard Hamilton's most accomplished members of his tree.
Yeah.
And Bill Self.
Yeah. Well done, Ryan. So the Big Ten had 9 teams in the field. I'm not going to hammer them, but, this is what people do if the ACC stumbles, which when we had the hype heading into the ACC tournament, the NCAA tournament, we broke records, meaning the ACC set records, just cruised on through everybody. Every time you looked up, another ACC victory. The Big Ten had a similar momentum heading into this year's tournament. 9 teams, including a pair of number 1s, a pair of number 2s, and a 4. Only number 1 Michigan managed to make it to the Sweet 16. Not the Elite 8, just the Sweet 16. One of them. That's it. That's all.
And we could send the final one home by about 7 o'clock on Sunday.
So that's nice. Baylor has done well. Big 12 saw Kansas, West Virginia, Oklahoma State, Texas Tech, and Oklahoma get kicked to the curb. The ACC has recovered in the second round thanks to Florida State University and Syracuse. Namely, Florida State University.
When the Q's barely gets in, they go deep. That's how this works these days.
It's sad. I would, in retrospect, I really do wish we would have had the opportunity to see that game. That game was in the Carrier Dome. Florida State got that game canceled because of COVID. Would have been something to watch because it's always interesting to play Syracuse with the way they defend. And it can be frustrating, but also when we've solved the riddle many times. So I would have liked to have seen what that matchup looked like. And admittedly, given our road woes for this year, how would we have shot in that building?
Seemed like they got to their spots pretty well last night when Colorado broke out the zone. So
we
I know it's different than Syracuse's zone.
It is.
But,
Yeah, we had no problem getting to our spots there. We also had no problem breaking the press. Poor Colorado tried that, and then here comes a dunk.
Yeah, good luck.
Yeah. Do you guys remember? I think many of you do. Inbounds plays, press, zone. All of it bothered the hell out of us for a long time.
Oh, no. They went to the zone. They figured it out.
Now all those things get torched.
I don't know if this 26-23 lead with 12 minutes to go in the game is going to hold.
Yeah, all those things get torched these days. The East region has 3 of the 4 top seeds, Michigan, Alabama, and FSU, along with Cinderella UCLA. The South still has number 1 Baylor, Arkansas, and Villanova. That's a 3 seed and a 5 seed, respectively, along with number 15 seed Oral Roberts. The West has overall number 1 Gonzaga, number 5 Creighton, number 6 USC, number 7 Oregon. So this is fun. You avoid the rematches of Gonzaga and Iowa, Kansas, and or Virginia, and the Midwest region is a mess with number 2 Houston still intact. They squeak out a 63-60 win over Rutgers. You have underseeded Loyola Chicago, who I mentioned earlier. Really, that's a screw job for poor Illinois having to face them as an 8. Syracuse is at 11, and Oregon State is at 12. So here we go. The tournament's a mess, and other than Gonzaga, is there anybody? Baylor's really good. Gonzaga's really good. I don't think you want to play USC right now. When I watch them, I think, problematic. I'm not afraid of anybody here.
Yeah, it's interesting, too. So this time, the previous 2 times we played here in the tournament, our potential matchup was tipping off about a half an hour, 40 minutes before we did. This time, should we carry the day on Sunday, beat Michigan, you'll be tuning into Alabama, UCLA after our game is concluded. A little bit more traditional. Be interested. Does UCLA have something for Alabama? I know they're the toast of the town after their effort last night in the barrage that they put on Maryland, but I don't know. There's a lot of redefining of terms in this tournament, and UCLA found something.
I got lucky. It's the one region where I got anything right from an upset standpoint. I took UCLA to win the play-in game over Michigan State, and then I took them to beat BYU. I kept thinking, I was like, UCLA team could be a problem. But that was the only thing I got right. I really didn't get much else right.
Mick Cronin. Yeah, well, in our quadrant, it's mostly chalk, except for that one. That UCLA and that Texas is out, that's a lot more chalk.
I think it's interesting to listen to Leonard Hamilton talk. And did we ever play we still haven't played the clip. That's just me prattling on. I get so excited. Here's Leonard Hamilton.
Well, we've had games this year where we've played very good defense. We've had games where we've executed very well offensively. We've been a little up and down, a little inconsistent. But tonight I thought our players were locked in with our defensive game plan. Obviously, Colorado is a tremendously high percentage free throw shooting team. They play good enough defense to only put them on the line 11 times. And they've had several games this year, I think over 10 games, where they've shot at least 10 threes, made 10 threes in a game. So that's a tremendous challenge when you have to guard people on the perimeter to take away their three-point shooting. And then you have to make sure that you shrink the gaps because they got an outstanding point guard who probably is responsible for 50 to 60% of their offense. So we had to be locked in, not foul, contest shots, and that took a tremendous effort and a high level of concentration by our team. And that's why I was so proud of the fact that they continue to keep executing what we had in our game plan, even when they cut the lead right down to 1 point. Well, I'm so proud of Anthony because he had the shoulder injury there about middle ways this season, along with MJ and Malik and Balsa, as well as Scotty. And so we've been kind of limping around a little bit, and it's kind of thrown us off of our shooting schemes and not being able to get shots up and trying to get treatment. And so I'm hoping that, with a little time off here now, it looks like we're getting back to shooting the ball where we were early in the season. Our defense, we kind of got healed up from some of the ankle turns and the little strains that we had. And so I'm hopeful that we can continue to keep getting better because we sure going to need it.
All guests appear via the Phone Hero hotline. Phone Hero specializing in iPhone and iPad repair. 2 locations, 2915 Cary Forest Parkway, 833 West Gain Street, online, phoneheroTLH.com. Leonard Hamilton talking about what we suspected. He keeps things mostly close to the vest. When it comes to injury, certainly anytime there's discipline of any kind, he's not going to show you his cards. And he's not a complainer, but we've heard, and he's mentioned off and on here and there, about these injuries. And I think it coincides with the drop-off in consistency from the offensive side of things. And, that can be unsettling, frustrating. and it can affect you in terms of a confidence level. And I think getting them to hyper-focus then instead on the defense and letting the offense come where it may, and it's going to be a different guy each night. Who's feeling better tonight? Anybody feeling better than they did last week? Oh, it's you tonight, Anthony. Okay, good. Feel free. Be aggressive. And that's smart because collectively they have bought into the defensive side of things, and that is something that you can continue to do. When you have the kind of depth that they do, where you can, get guys in and out and rest them so they can go full bore when they're in there, and they don't have to worry about trying to beat somebody off the dribble, just staying in front of people, use that length, use that size, use that body, rebound the basketball. You can really give yourself a chance to kind of find your way offensively. That's the theme of a lot of what I'm going to say today and what I was thinking last night. Just playing good enough defense, great defense, until you figured out how to score, until you figured out who was the hot hand, until you figured out how do we build the lead. And they did it last night. It's 24-20 at half. And then you go berserk in the second half of 47 points.
To me, the thing I take away from that audio is there is a tinge of hope in his voice.
Yeah, he wants to get healthy because he knows they can score if they're healthy too.
Yeah, but I think
he loves that they're defensively, yes.
I think he's also seeing the health come around. He's like, yeah, looks like might be getting a little bit better finally.
Yeah, and then I think with it, you just kick out of that funk, man. You see a few shots go down. Scotty Barnes didn't score a lot last night, but there's two beautiful little runner in the lane there. He got to his spot. I kept yelling about get to your spot. And even if you don't get the shot to go down, take the shot. There were times last night where Malik was where he needed to be, took the shot. And, of course, he made a couple too. Raekwon is playing terribly, but he took the shot when he had an open look. Thank you for doing that. Just take the shot. Who knows? It might go in. And you know what? If you see the ball go through the hoop, maybe you gain a little bit of confidence. Obviously, Anthony Polite took the shot. They did go down. He began to gain real confidence, and you saw that with a number of guys. Maybe they're trending in that direction. Jeff Cameron, Show 97.9 ESPN Radio. Go. I know this isn't the time, so I won't dwell on it. This will be the lone segment in which the sport of baseball is brought up. And by the way, I'm not talking about Florida State baseball, which is really good right now. I was just thinking about something. He wouldn't do this, nor should he, I guess. But on the subject of Florida State baseball, it'd be kind of funny if they continue down the path that they're headed, the trajectory that they're headed on, which is a good one because they can really pitch, and now their hitters have come into life, and they just got done going through a stretch of ass beatings against arch rivals, the likes of which we've not seen around here in 21 years or so. If he just wore a shirt in the dugout that said nepotism, that would be great. I would like him to do that for the people in the stands and those that have sought to compare.
I hear you, but is now the time for the victory lap, or do we want to wait?
No. I'm being petty.
Yeah.
But I would. It was never the same scenario. It was never the same. And it annoyed me to death, and it'd be great if
I agree. We're going in that direction, but, he's coached like 30 games so far.
And not one of them is a loss to a rival.
Yeah.
Not one. I'm just saying. Just at some point, maybe. That'd be great. Yeah. No, after you win the College World Series.
Yeah, that would be for the post-game press conference.
Yeah, it'd be great. He's not. That's just me. It's just me being petty because I got so tired. Oh, man. No, I got my renewal notice via email.
For?
MLB.
Oh, MLB TV?
Yeah.
All right.
Came in, I was checking my email, and they were like, Mr. Cameron, thanks for – by the way, they got you. I mean, when you signed up for it, it renews automatically like anything else anymore. So you're out $140 whatever dollars, and you forgot that you did it. Mm-hmm. I had one of those moments where you panic. You're like, what? Why am I down about $200 from where I was? I didn't spend any money today, and you just – because you take a glance. Actually, the truth was my wife said, we got to write 2 checks for after school for the kids. And I was like, okay. And that's the only thing I write a check for. Like, we're who writes a check anymore? But we write checks for after school. And I said, okay, well, I think my checkbook's in the back. I don't think we've used it since the last time we used it. And I go, how much is it? And I always forget. It changes some for one reason or another. And then she tells me, and I go, okay, I'll write the check.
Is it a lot?
It's not cheap.
It's not cheap?
Well, it's not. No, it's not the end of the world. Like, compared to when they're not in middle school or high school. I mean, middle school or elementary school. Like, back in the day when I had them, at pre-K. Holy moly, that'll binge you over. That is just wrong.
Pre-K for that ass.
Oh, buddy, that is highway robbery. You got to do it.
That's why they call it pre-KY.
Well played. You got to do it. You got no choice. And the problem was, we had 2 close together. So when the second one started while the first one's still there and you're doubling down on that, you're like, well, I don't have a life. Everything I'm working for is to go to
Does
that.
anybody want to work on a barter deal?
But no, it's not so bad. But it's enough that you need to note it in your account so that you don't get confused. And I'm terrible, by the way, about that. I don't know about you. The modern way of doing things is not the way that we were raised, right? When you're younger, you had to keep your ledger. You had to do all. Nobody does that anymore. You go to the ATM, get your receipt. That's how much money you got. That's what you do. I'm not talking about savings. I'm just talking about checking.
Yeah, carrying the one and stuff like that.
Yeah. You remember you used to do all that? Like,
sure.
$17.52 to Publix. Okay. And then you would add it all up and do all that.
I know a couple of people who still do that, and I respect it because
Yeah.
that is meticulous keeping of the records.
Don't have to, though. Really don't. I mean, you can look it up on your phone
That's
on the
correct.
app. You could just drive through and get you $10 or not $10, but $20 out of the ATM, and the little receipt will tell you exactly what you've got in there and where the money withdrawn from and why. But anyhow, so I wanted to make a mental note that money was going to be coming out, and when I went to my account to just glance at it, I thought it was short a couple $100. And I was like, well, not for nothing. It seems to be short a couple $100. Hun, did you buy something I don't know of? Did you make a trip to the store that I don't know of? Just checking, not mad. Just need to know. No. So you're starting to, you get a little nervous. You're like, what the hell's going on here? And then I did the research and found out that buried in my inbox of 9,000 plus emails that are sitting there was Xfinity going, thanks for the renewal. we got you, buddy. Your MLB package is all set.
Oh, you got it via the TV?
Yeah, it comes
Yeah,
through.
because they give you now the web portion of it.
And they give you it's in HD. You remember
Yeah.
for years it wasn't? You're
That's
like,
correct.
What are we doing here?
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, it made no sense.
Yeah, Jamie got it this year, and she didn't mean to. She's like, I guess I bought us MLB TV this year because somebody's going to buy it. I mean,
got to.
I'm a Mets fan,
Yeah.
and she's a Twins fan.
What are you going to do?
But I was like, well, thanks, wife. I guess that's on you.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
You got to have it.
Yep.
But when I saw it, I was reminded just a little bit, about how bad the Pittsburgh Pirates were going to be, and that I'm paying for that package to watch a whole bunch of other teams that are a lot better.
That's right. You pay for that package.
I will pay for the package. And what it caused me to do, so you guys can celebrate as Braves fans, what should be a great season. You got a really good team. You can celebrate as a Mets fan, Tom. You got a really good team. The Phillies are certainly better than my team in Pittsburgh, so Director Matthew can be pretty excited to watch his team. And, most people I know, hell, I've got friends that are Marlins fans, and admittedly, I'd be excited to watch them too. That's a nice young team. The Rays are good. Always. Okay, good. So basically, everybody I know has a reason to be locked into their teams but me. And I just had a little pity party for myself for a moment, just a chance to feel sorry for myself as I was accounting for the lost money. But I also thought about this. It means baseball's about to start.
Yeah, this is going to be a really goofy part of the sports calendar, personally, because hockey and baseball, the handoff between the two, it's seamless. It's like a relay race.
Mm-hmm.
You have a little bit of playoff.
Got you. Lightning win back-to-back Stanley Cups, and baseball starts.
Right,
Yeah.
right. That's there's about a month, bleed over, give or take, for the playoffs. I don't watch nearly as much of the MLB playoffs as I do the Stanley Cup playoffs.
Well, you will now that the Mets are going to be in it.
Well, I'd like to believe that, but
Maybe not
we're
this year,
the
but
Mets,
soon enough.
Yeah. Also, there's college football and the NFL happening when the MLB playoffs, so you have to work harder to watch that particular one. In hockey, it's the summer. What the hell else are you going to do? But this year, it's May that hockey ends, so I've really got to make time to watch baseball for the first couple of months.
But you will, because you have a new and exciting product. You've got Lindor. You've got reasons to want to watch a good team. I have to just watch for kids that may be good 3 years from now while we lose our 7th in a row. That's what I get to do nightly, Tom.
Well, I had to watch Robinson Cano for a little while. So.
Yeah, it was frustrating.
Yeah.
But what I ended up doing was I was listening to Keith Law's podcast, amongst others, getting set for baseball, and they did the win totals this year. They went through every team. I was like, oh, okay, well, this ought to be fun. And they got to Pittsburgh, and they wanted to do over-unders, and they said over-under 55 wins.
Oh, no.
Think about that. These sons of bitches out here offending people, throwing out a 55 win total. I'm taking the over all day long. Good God, 55.
You're going to hit the over. And just remind yourself that 60 wins means you have 2 months worth of happy afternoons or nights in terms of the results.
That's a good way to look at it.
2 full months of smiles.
That's insulting to throw a win total out there of 55 for anybody. 55. Children could win 55 games by accident. It's baseball. You just run into a few wins by accident. It happens all the time. 55. It's like, oh. Now, they tried to sugarcoat it because on the back end, he goes, no, I really like the farm system. They've got some real – if you Pirates fans can be patient, you've got some great young prospects. You're a top 10 minor league prospects organization. You've got several good players coming up. That is not going to help you this year, but you got to hang in there. There I was. I said, I'll be hanging. I got nowhere else to go.
You're listening to the podcast in the first place. That's the definition of hanging.
Yeah, I'm hanging in there, guys. I'm right here. But I like to know, and this is true of Florida State football, for example. I saw Dr. Birch this morning, Birch Orthodontics. My son was going there. I had to go by. I saw her. We were talking about last night's big win in basketball. We were celebrating the moment together. And then she asked me about football. I just kind of looked at her and nodded. And then she looked back and nodded, and I just nodded. She goes, I get the vibe. Mm-hmm. Just nod. I said, but we'll be better than last year.
Mm-hmm. Wake Forest, week 3.
Big game.
That's it.
Big game. Circle that sucker. Put a red marker on your calendar. Call your friends. That's the one. We're watching that one. That's going to decide the season.
We are gearing up.
The big Wake game, Tommy. That's what we've got ahead of us. Not these other games with good teams. Just can we win that Wake game? Because that makes it possible to go 6-6 or 7-5. Okay. Hour number 2, Jeff Cameron Show, 97.9 ESPN Radio. Hello, good to be with you. Thanks for joining us. I'm Jeff, that's Tom. We're online, ESPNTallahassee.com. You can also listen old school with your radio. You can watch it on YouTube. You can go back and find it if you missed the program, portions of it or all of it, via the podcast. We'll drop that in there as soon as the show ends. Apple Podcast houses that, so do others. Florida State, of course, as we talked about last hour, we will continue to talk about off and on throughout today's program. On to the Sweet 16 yet again. It's old hat, kids. Going to the Sweet 16 like it's our job, year in and year out. That's what this program does, and they're doing it again on the heels of a breakout in the second half against Colorado offensively, a defensive effort that was dominant throughout. They've really hung their hat on defense lately. That seems to be the common ingredient in these runs, that this commitment to defense allows for lulls offensively. And we thought this year would be different. We didn't think that that was possible, that this team could go through long stretches where they look lost offensively. And it may have taken, unfortunately, some cuts and bruises, if you will, some injuries that led to the inconsistencies there is because of the inability to practice together, all as one unit. And so they fell back on that defense, and it's something to behold when they're committed to it because, like in the past, the recent past, when they are committed and they play as one defensively, you see that size come into play so often. I love watching the first 5 minutes of these games anytime we're dedicated to defense. Opposing teams just look absolutely flabbergasted. You can see them look at one another. You can see them look at their coaches. You can see it in the first TV timeout or the first timeout taken. They're kind of like, well, I don't know the answer to this riddle. We're going to be here a while because those guys aren't going to get shorter. You know, it's a bad feeling. If any of you out there listening, if you've ever played against somebody that their speed, their strength, in this case, their length, their size, is so overwhelmingly better or greater than yours, and you've never encountered that before. I think we've all, as people who grew up playing sports, right? There's that time, that first time you encounter that kid. You're like, well, that's different. That's kind of speed I've never seen before. I don't have much for that, you know. Or that first guy that you ever got into a fight with, and he didn't look it on the outside, but he was straight up country strong, and he grabbed your arm, and you realized, oh, okay, so this isn't going to be what I thought it was. This is a different kind of dance. I'm going to have to come at it a different way. I don't like this. This is not what I was hoping for when we began to have our disagreement. That's the look on the faces of these teams playing Florida State right now. It's like, yeah, I know Coach told us that you had size for days, and I know that we watched the film, and I can read the media guide, and it says he's 7 feet, and he's 6'10", and he's 6'9". But then there's the actual having to do something when you're up against it with the ball, and a 6'9" guard comes out to pick you up just across half court. And then when you think, oh, good, he's going to the bench, and you look back and the guy they brought in to guard you is 6'7" or 6'6". That's the joy right now that you're seeing with the lack of familiarity for these teams facing Florida State is the, wow, these guys are giants, and they play well together, and they challenge everything, and they switch 1 through 5, and I can't get a good look for the love of God. You know, and it's just, now some kids do begin to adapt, and they're good athletes, and there are players that begin to understand the trajectory is going to have to change. The way I set up the shot's going to have to change. The spots that I'm accustomed to getting to on the court, that's going to have to change. 2 feet this way, 3 feet back, whatever it might be, because I can't just get there right now. We said going into this game last night, a couple things. I thought Florida State would lose because of the wild inconsistencies we were seeing on offense and the turnovers that we were seeing from this group, which has been a persistent problem all year long. But we did not expect that this commitment to defense, renewed commitment to defense, would be to the level it's at. And then we did not know, obviously, that they were going to get the career night from Anthony Polite. Now, I think I was less stunned by Polite's performance because we've seen him play really good games before, and we've seen him be a scorer before. We've watched that guy knock down shots. And I think it's a fun thing. I know there are a lot of articles written about it today, and it's a good thing to highlight that. I think we can, we've talked a lot about every other aspect of the game. Really quick about Anthony Polite. He is a great representation of how good this coaching staff is. There was a time where we would recruit guys that had things that you couldn't coach, such as size and length. And all we asked of them was to be dedicated defensively because there was no way we were going to beat people with offensive prowess, meaning comparing our offensive prowess to yours. We were just going to have to make things so difficult for you because of our length that you might give in. You might just say it's too much. But when you won that way, when you won with the junkyard mentality, you were winning 51-49, as we've talked about. You weren't winning the way that Florida State's now capable, the modern version of Florida State is now capable of winning. But go back to those days, and they were guys that were lacking skill but had size. And yeah, by the time they left, they had improved skill-wise. They had gotten better, but they weren't by any stretch of the imagination elite offensively. They were sufficient, good enough. They had gotten better, but they were just good enough. Now, when you watch the improvements, it's not just with the bigs. It's with everybody. It's with guards. It's with forwards. It's with guys that come off the bench. It's with guys that are playing reserve roles. It's with the walk-ons that get in at the end of the game. It's everybody, right? You watch the way these guys coach these kids up, you see growth across the board. And the first time you saw Polite and the first time you saw Wilkes and a few other guys that are making up this roster and at times really contributing, you didn't think they were going to be major players in Florida State's future success. Polite especially, because he's a lefty and a little goofy. You thought, I don't know. Now he's silky smooth. He changes speeds. His handles are so much better, and he can really shoot it.
So one of the group texts that I'm on from a bunch of alum graduated around the same time in the lost decade is usually reserved for like Buccaneers talk, but it's magic how, you make the tournament a few years in a row and these things start lighting up again. And we're having discussions about, some of the general things in the team and some of the conclusions that one of them drew. I was like, what are you talking about? You don't watch this team clearly. But then we got a discussion about Calhoun. And I said, it's Polite's development that gives me a lot of hope for what Calhoun can be next year.
Correct.
Different type of player. One's a springy athlete. One is a sneaky good athlete, but one, like Calhoun, is, unbelievable.
Oh, off the charts athletic.
But Polite's basketball IQ, which Leonard lauded him for last night, it didn't show up his freshman year. There were a lot of plays that weren't just goofy. You're like, oh, no.
And he dribbled into traffic and did dumb things, yeah.
Right, and it's completely unfair to assess after 10 games in your freshman year something and make a grand generalization about a player. But I'm wondering, is this just a legacy thing, or is he...
Right.
But then last year you saw, there's a lot of meat beyond his ability to defend the ball because he was always a good on-the-ball defender. He can actually do some things offensively, and now he's a complete player. He's a complete player that you want to have on the court for multiple reasons. It gives me a lot of hope for what Calhoun can become.
I think that's a fair thing to bring up because right now Calhoun is dangerous, good and bad. He's dangerous. You watch that kid, and he can really spark a rally for the other team. He can absolutely be the reason another team gets back in a game. And other times, he can be the reason we come out of a prolonged funk. That's the kind of up and down nature to his game and inconsistency you see with him. He gets lost defensively. He tries to make plays that aren't there offensively. He's a little spastic, as I've described him all year long. But other times, man, is he the spark. He's the straw that stirs the drink in a moment when you had to have that energy and you had to have that athleticism and you had to have that springiness, as you described. He'll come in and do that. He'll knock down a three. He's got a beautiful stroke. Obviously, he can jump out of the gym. He's quick. And so he can create offense sometimes when things are bogged down. I have real hope for him too, but it's not this year. He has shown that he is a little out of his element right now, And Adrian Crawford said about him, I think correctly, you got to find the way to get that junior college out of him. And that's true. I mean, when you bring in guys like that, you got to teach and coach the junior college out of them.
I thought it was a better effort last night for him defensively, and also the fact that Nathaniel Jack saw more than just fleeting minutes ahead of a media timeout tells me that in practice maybe he's coming along.
Well, and also that he's healthy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we're not healthy in the backcourt. Everybody seems to be dinged, whether it's Scotty. Obviously, MJ is not nearly the player he was.
Leonard's comments about him were strong. You know, he was impressed, and he said he did everything but make the buckets. They were halfway down.
Oh, well,
his
the
shots.
1-3 should have gone. I mean, it's all the way down the cylinder.
But remember, you know, this last time we made the Elite Eight, PJ Savoy emerged out of nowhere. Like,
That's
defensively and offensively, you're like, whoa, where's that defense been,
Yeah.
PJ? Maybe Nathaniel Jack can give you 6 to 8 minutes a night.
Yeah, you don't need a lot.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And then if he gives you 2 out of 3 from beyond the arc, that's incredibly valuable. That
Yeah, he's a
changes
heat
things.
check guy. He's a heat check guy. That 3 that he took, it was the right stroke. It was beautiful. Everything about it was a confident release. You know, some of these guys right now, I'm just monitoring for confidence. You know, do you have any when you hoist that shot? He wasn't afraid. The moment wasn't too big for him. Sometimes guys, you know, it's funny. Coach K once said about looking at Christian Laettner early in his career. He may miss, but he'll never choke. It was a descriptor, right? I think Nathaniel Jack's like that. Christian Laettner is one of the all-time greatest college players to ever, you know, suit up. I'm not saying that, but Nathaniel Jack is not afraid. He believes in his shot. So he may miss, but he's not going to choke. That's good to see. It's good to see. It's good to know that the moment won't be too big for him when you roll out there.
Well, it's also good to know that he's on the depth chart. You know, because, like, there's some guys that you just don't see for a while. You're like, why is Jack going in? We don't really have any foul trouble in the back court. You know, is somebody hurt? What is the reason? And then he holds his own. Not saying he, like, lit the world on fire offensively and defensively, but you're, like, not worried about him every possession, where you can be when Calhoun's not going right.
Oh,
it's a
really
turnover waiting to
him,
happen.
Yeah.
He's going to go freelance and do his own thing.
The
But
two guys right now that when the ball touches their hands, I go, ooh, this could be good or could be terrible. Him and Balsa. I mean, and I'm not, obviously, if you lob the ball to Balsa, he's going to dunk it. And if he's directly under the basket, he's got a much better chance of catching and scoring than in Gom, who's just going to throw it into next week and suck. So, yeah, I mean, you do have that.
he got us a block last night. Or
Did you see that ridiculous, perfectly thrown pass to him, and he's standing directly underneath the hoop and just out of nowhere throws it into the rafters?
you did.
Oh,
You
Jesus,
did.
it doesn't get any easier than that. But you know what? Got a lot of hope. Got a lot of hope because they developed those guys too.
That's
and the
correct.
guys go from leaving me bereft of hope to, all right, I kind of like what so-and-so's doing these days. So I believe that's still in there.
You know exactly what he's going to be next year. He's the guy that starts the game. Well,
Yeah.
sorry.
Stealing minutes, Tom. We're stealing minutes next year.
That'll be interesting, actually, with Balsa. Like, can you do the Kumaje plan with Balsa coming off the bench and starting a Gom?
Well, because he can't stay out of foul trouble, you might have to.
That's going to be critical on the weekend.
I really need him to stop doing dumb things. I mean, the 2 fouls that get him ejected, I know he fouled out. It's not the same as ejected, are just dumb.
Yeah.
You're up 14. The guy's got a layup. He's got position. What are you doing? Let him lay it in. And you can see the look Ham on his face. Like, you just did that. You couldn't help yourself. You had to foul him.
Right.
You had to foul him.
The 50-50s do not go his way,
No,
but that
he's
does not
huge.
excuse the second
Oh,
half.
no,
Yeah,
just
4th
dumb.
and 5th foul.
Well, and he does those things where he catches the ball at
Puts
the
it on
top
the
of the
deck.
key.
Oh, sorry.
Well, and if he's in transition, a guy set up shop,
Yeah.
waiting on him, and come on, big fella, run me over.
Yeah, there was one against UNCG where he puts it on the deck, and you're standing next to the rim.
Just
MJ
go
had one of those
straight
last
back
night,
up.
baseline. Remember the drive
Yeah,
baseline?
yeah.
And he passes it to Gray. Gray ends up getting fouled, and it almost goes in for an N1, but it's like, you're right there.
Just lay it in, yeah. Or dunk it.
Or dunk it.
Yeah.
It's not illegal.
Yeah.
It's not illegal.
But they did a lot right last night defensively, which leads to that patience leads to offense. And I hope a big part of what happened last night that excites me is obviously you get the win and you go back to the Sweet 16, which is critical as you continue the growth of this program, and you really sustain the excellence. I think that second half, they scored nearly 50 points in that second half. That might be the catalyst for a confident offensive performance. Now, if you can keep that defensive energy where it's at and the focus where it's at, and then take what you did in that second half where you had a lot of guys score and a lot of guys play with confidence on the offensive end, If that translates, and plus this rest that you get now, if that translates into a strong, confident offensive performance on Sunday, look out. Look out. We could be talking about an Elite Eight. Ooh.
And then you're one game away.
Tommy.
Then you're one game away.
Let's not go down
On
that
a Monday
road.
on the Jeff Cameron Show, you're one game away.
Yeah. I don't know if we can. I don't even like to entertain it.
I want to try.
I do too.
I want to try.
I want to see how we do. Jeff Cameron Show, 97.9 ESPN Radio. Now, I have no idea what is going to happen in this Deshaun Watson case, but commenting on it from afar, I will just say, what in the world? Who amongst us is not left with mouths agape? This is a stunning turn of events. Now, listen, I've lived too long to say that I'm shocked by much. I don't know what's true and what's not true in that story. I just know that there are 14 separate lawsuits alleging sexual assault, and that is alarming, to say the least. We'll wait for the facts to come out.
That's right.
But, wow, right? I mean, you in the category of, in the department of, I didn't see that coming. This is high on the list of things that I am stunned by, or at least taken aback by. I don't think, listen, sometimes, I'll give you one. Here you go. I think we were all absolutely mortified and somewhat, I think, shell-shocked when we learned that not only is Marvin one-time Harrison a different player or person than you thought he was, but also might very well be a Don. Like, he may be like the head of a freaking mob. Mm-hmm. Like, my man wasn't just a little bit different than you thought he was, that his demeanor showed on the field, or his quiet personality and the way he, went about his business didn't suggest. No, the more you read those articles, and there have been many, go back and read them, that detail a lot of unsavory behavior and criminality that you would not have ever guessed to be true about Marvin Harrison. So when you read that he may have shot somebody with a German-made elephant gun and then hid it in a bucket at his car wash down the street, that he may have had a man eliminated who bore witness to a crime that he may or may not have committed sometime sooner or earlier in his life, and we could keep going. Those stories abound. There's the slapping of the guy's face at the Pro Bowl who asked for an autograph in Hawaii. There's
more than once. More than once.
There's Marvin one-time Harrison that we grew to talk about a lot, because what we saw was a pattern that apparently Marvin said no or to do something once. There won't be a second. When he told that man he wasn't there to give him an autograph, that was the warning. The man persisted. He was slapped across the face violently. Marvin is one-time Harrison. He's not having it. There won't be a second. When he asked the man to leave his bar, and the man didn't leave his bar, things went down that were troubling. Marvin's going to ask you one time. And when you learned of it, you thought, that dude is small in stature and virtually silent, never said anything, despite being one of the most prolific wide receivers in history.
There was a reason. Don't need the attention.
He's a man of few words, Tom.
Just need the stats.
Just need what he needs.
And the dollars.
All right, so that stunned me. I'm thinking back of all the times we've been on the air when something happened and things began to come out where you went, what? No, not so-and-so. What? There's no way. That kind of conversation.
Yeah. You don't want to be in the pantheon of the Cosbys or Jareds or
right, where you're
Marvin
like,
Harrison.
Like,
Jared? What in the world?
Subway.
But this is the list you're going to join.
Yeah.
This is the list.
Yes. Now, if, and it's a big if, but if this is true, what is being alleged by a lot of people,
up to 14 as of this morning.
Yeah. It is stunning. If it is true. But man, we're talking on the real here. It does seem disturbing, Tom, that 14 people are alleging virtually the same thing, and there's a pattern.
Yeah.
There's a very distinct pattern.
I had this conversation, and all you could do is laugh because of the absurdity of it, but it's a serious issue. But I remember talking to, I believe it was my mom, about Cosby, because we used to watch the Cosby Show at dinner every night.
I loved it. It was stunning when you heard those revelations.
Well, he's accused of, and she goes, no. I said, Mom, 60 people have accused him. She's like, 60?
Yeah.
60?
Mom, have you ever heard the phrase where there's smoke, there's fire?
At some point.
It's
60 people.
60.
Oh.
And it's amazing. It's uncanny how similar the details are. Yeah.
And the answer was, I was like, yeah, I know.
60.
60.
Not 2. 60. And they didn't know each other. They're from different parts of the country, yet their stories seem awfully similar. Yeah, at some point, because you're a reasonable human being and you can read and you can evaluate, there's context clues that you pick up on in life, and you go, well, that certainly seems troubling. I'm not so sure those ladies aren't telling the truth. I mean, it seems like maybe they are here. This seems like there's a pattern developing that has, at the very least, caused me a concern for what I'm reading. These stories with what's going on here with Deshaun Watson, are troubling and, yes, very serious in nature. Of course, we know that. I need not have to say that, but I will, just in case. But the first – listen, let's go down the timeline here.
Delicately.
Yes. The first time you read – this is how squeaky clean and how upstanding Deshaun Watson would appear to be prior to the 14 separate accusations that we're getting now that maybe he's not that. I don't know about you, Tom, because we were both on a little spring break here. We both had our few days off and all that. But when the first accusation came to light, I don't know if you saw it on SportsCenter, you read it on ESPN or The Athletic or wherever you were, however you saw it.
TMZ had it.
Okay.
Not that I follow TMZ, but when they pick something up like this, everybody who works in sports media, which is my Twitter timeline, retweets the hell out of that thing.
So I was out of town, and I heard, I think, like a Sports Center flash or whatever, one of these little Sports Center updates. And I went, what? And my family was in the car. We were driving, and I was like, whoa. I said to Christy, did they just say Deshaun Watson's been accused of sexual assault? And she said, yeah, I think that's what the woman said. I said, wow, that's surprising. I don't know if it's true, but boy, that's stunning. Well, to let you know the way that I viewed Deshaun Watson based on the people that have been around Deshaun Watson and spoken of Deshaun Watson, and all of them glowingly so, whether the Texans teammates or Clemson players or Dabo or anybody else. I assumed, and this maybe reflects poorly on me, that it might not be true, that it doesn't seem likely to me. There seems to, I'll wait and see. I'll read. We'll find out. We'll let the court, we'll let this all play out. But boy, I don't know. This seems a little suspect. I don't know. We'll wait and see. And it's not crazy of me to think that somebody could try to shake down a famous athlete. So it's also not me dismissing women. I'm not doing that. I'm saying that's how good of a reputation Deshaun Watson had, that I was like, well, let's see how this plays out. Some people you say that about, and you go, oh, yeah, I'm buying that. It's true. That's true. We all have perceptions of people.
Yeah, and the insider of insiders is Adam Schefter. And for him to, just a week earlier before this whole thing, because you're having the war, the standoff between the Texans and Deshaun, for him to say Deshaun Watson is a good person and, this is – so he was wronged here. Well, but he wasn't the only one. But the people who are the ultimate
they were going
insiders,
to bat for him, yes.
That tells you
about
that
the contract.
This is stunning. This is stunning to them because he was willing to go there on the personal level when it was about business. So that tells you that there was no trace of this until there was. And
that's right.
Then there was a mountain of traces of something.
Well, okay, so, and I'll fill people in here if you guys haven't had a chance to hear this. I mean, there are countless stories. By the way, David Hale, friend of the program, I know him very, very well. He's covered this Clemson program for a while now. Tweeted out yesterday Dabo Swinney's quote when asked about Deshaun Watson. Shockingly, by the way, and believe me, I'd be the first person to pounce on it if it wasn't. Shockingly, it was a perfect statement from Dabo Swinney. There was no wrong in anything he says.
So who wrote it? David, I need you. We've got a sin problem in this country. We've got a sin problem.
Yeah.
And I don't need any of this political nonsense.
Yeah.
I've been taking a bath, David.
What he said, actually, and I'm paraphrasing. I didn't pull it up, but I read it last night at my son's baseball game, and I read the quote, looking for a mistake because I wanted to rip Dabo.
Oh, Wuhan Dabo.
Oh, I was ready to rip Wuhan, another one. but he got it right. Wuhan got it right. He said, I've only known Deshaun Watson. I love Deshaun Watson like my son. I met him in 9th grade. I've known him since then. He's never been anything but upstanding in the entire time that I've ever been around him in the realm of being a Clemson football player and me a coach. And he basically extrapolated that out, saying, listen, when Deshaun was here, not only was he beloved by all the coaches and the administrators and his teammates, he only got in trouble once, and it was, I think his freshman year, he was 5 minutes late to a meeting, and I yelled at him for that, and it never happened again. That's how in line he was with everything that we asked of him, and he's been nothing but respectful to everybody. And he said, but I only know him as the quarterback at Clemson. So he kind of basically was smart enough to say, I'm not saying that's not true.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying I only know the guy I coached who was great. And
so
yeah,
that's the one thing Dabo has been consistently good at, though, in his career is outsourcing when he needs help. So it sounds like he outsourced to the right place.
He may have.
Good job.
Bottom line is, this has gotten so serious now, he's being called a serial predator. We've graduated to serial predator. The lawsuit's been filed. It was, as of yesterday, it appeared on the Harris County District Clerk's website this morning, alleges that Deshaun Watson assaulted and harassed, in this case, many plaintiffs, I'll just say by exposing himself. Okay? That's probably the nice way to say this. There's other aspects of it that I can't say on the air that aren't good. They're not good. Now, it's, again, allegedly, and these are alleged incidents, 14 separate alleged incidents, and I don't know if every single massage therapist mentioned in these lawsuits is making it up or not, but come on now. It certainly seems unlikely, does it not? Again, I don't know. That would be an amazing turn of events if 14 people made this up. Maybe they did. But to read that alongside Deshaun Watson's name, given his reputation both in college and professional football, is simply stunning. There's no other way to put it. Much like you, upon reading about Cosby. We thought, I'm not saying Deshaun Watson's Bill Cosby, but Bill Cosby was considered the most wholesome of men. He didn't even curse in his comedy.
Right. He swung Jell-O to kids.
Yes.
That's what he did.
Yes, and he was, Mr. Huxtable. Huxtable, yeah.
Huxtable, yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you come on. That guy, he's always in a sweater.
That's correct.
There's no chance.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be like Mr. Rogers being accused, yeah. Buddy, all I'm saying is this story
I was sorry to break the news to my mom, She was not thrilled about that. 60. Mom. 60.
Well, we're going to find out. This will be very, very I was also thinking about this, and I know that it's crass to talk football when you have a very serious allegation that is so much more important than a game. But think if, there were 2 or 3 teams rumored that were going hardcore.
Yeah.
God, if the Texans could have pulled the trigger.
Oh, well.
Given what they know now.
I was thinking, if... What would happen
what if the
if
Dolphins
you were like
had
the
bought
Jets
in?
and you
Yeah.
had them and you're like,
Yeah.
you take them back?
What I'm saying is, that would happen to the Jets.
Mm-hmm.
The Jets would go all in. We want Deshaun. We're going to get our guy. The Texans are tired of this nonsense, meaning the negotiations. You got him. Give us a haul. Give us your number 1 each of the next 3 years, plus 2 number 2s and a player, and you can have him. The Jets are like, we're doing it. He's perfect for New York. And then, shaka-bam, this happens. Now, in a weird way, that would have been funny from a football standpoint.
From a football
standpoint, that would have been hilarious had, say, the Falcons gone all in. The Falcons had gone all in. I'm sorry. In a weird way, you wish the March Madness schedule, the NCAA tournament, existed for the entirety of a season, right? Like, you just go home on a Tuesday for lunch. Oh, there are games on. This is great.
I agree, but it looks like they're supposed to move back to Thursday to Sunday next year. I'll be glad when they do that because it eats into 2 different weeks.
Yeah.
That's not cool.
No, why did they do that? Do we know?
Maybe there was a scheduling thing in the city of Indianapolis that it needed to be that way, but I don't know. Seemed like they could have done whatever the hell they wanted.
Hey, while this tournament's going on, guys, we've had a lot of people jump on board and help sponsor this and make it possible for us to have our relationship and deal with Westwood One and carry all these games. One of them is Florida Wing Factory. If you have not had a chance to go over there or check them out online, flwingfactory.com. You should, because I'm not only telling you that the wings are delicious, which they are. They have 30 different kinds, and I love their wings. I get the Blue Buffalo. But in addition to that, they're giving you 15% off right now if you order to go. Call ahead, you order from their website, however you do it. If you just tell them promo code JCS, you'll get 15% off your order. So that'd be wise. It'd be a good thing. Plus, it's happy hour there pretty well constantly while the games are being played. And every day after 4 o'clock, 4 to close. So you get $5 domestic mugs, 23 ounces. That's 22 ounces. That's a good thing. $3 domestic pints and great wings. So thought I'd throw that out there. I want you to use the promo code JCS and go get some wings from Florida Wing Factory and enjoy it, damn it. That said, with the scheduling you were just talking about, in Florida State, are you happy that we're playing on a Sunday? Mm-hmm. I would prefer a Saturday where I could really revel in the magnitude of the game and all that it entails. On a Sunday, you gotta dial it back and really be on the level.
Well, I had prior engagements on Saturday, so I think this is an outstanding draw. It really has been, in the grand scheme of things, as much as I don't like the Thursday-Sunday thing, Friday to Monday versus Thursday to Sunday, that we played Saturday and yesterday really helped with my beach vacation.
Yes, it did.
That we play Sunday helps with prior engagements I have this upcoming weekend. So, buddy, this could not be better. And if we win that one, it's a Tuesday night. We could do anything. We could watch it anywhere. Who knows?
Speaking of watching, I love how quickly we're moving towards the NFL draft. I love how quickly things are happening in our great community right now, where I don't know about you, but I've certainly been able to encounter a lot of people who were eligible to be vaccinated, and those that needed to be and wanted to be have been able to get that done. That's happening more and more in communities throughout the state, really throughout the country. I'm elated that my father and mother have been vaccinated. I'm elated that I have friends and family that have been vaccinated. I'm elated to know a lot of people that have, because we're moving towards a time where people can feel safer being amongst one another, and we can stop being so socially distanced. And it will be a wonderful moment in time, because we love to come together and celebrate events like that. And those aren't the same when you watch them from your living room by yourself. They're not. I mean, the draft has always been one of those things, Tom, where when you're together with passionate fellow football fans, it is the best. We love it. We congratulate those that we perceive to have made the right pick. We laugh in the face of those whose teams botched it yet again, and everything in between.
And if, Patriots fans know this quite well over the last 20 years, but unless we trade up, we're just going to sit there for 3 hours and watch everybody like a lab experiment. Go ahead. But I think I know where you're going with that. This is trending towards a very nice reunion between you and me and fans alike, listeners alike.
Absolutely it is.
We're going to have a blowout for the draft, I think.
Oh, I think it's going to happen. And yes, that's exactly why I brought it up. I think it's entirely possible, and I look forward to it. I love the draft. It's one of the non-sports related, meaning no game is being played. It's one of the non-sporting event related things that I absolutely love is the draft. It feels like a big game when you go to a draft party, because you can't wait for these picks. And I think in American sports, the thing is, it doesn't exist with Major League Baseball. And to a large degree, it does not exist with the NBA draft. I get that we all know the 5 or 6 guys at the top of the draft in the NBA, but only the NFL draft features guys that get drafted in the 3rd round that you know something about quite a bit. Like when you watch a guy get drafted in the 4th round out of Ole Miss, you'll harken back to that day you saw him play against Alabama, and you'll go, oh, that's that dude who had the 2 sacks and the forced fumble. He's a really quick twitch guy, yeah.
Hey, man, it might be taxing to some, but I would be open to having a watch party for the second night of the draft. That would be a Friday. You get rounds 2 and 3. It's a happy hour experience. It kind of goes hand in hand. Everybody loves the first round, but I'm just saying, if we want to go back to back, hey, let's do it.
Let's run it back. I'll see you here tomorrow night. Some of our greatest interactions have been at NFL draft parties. Appropriate, inappropriate, reserved, robust, everything in between. We've had moments.
I'll never forget the Quentin Nelson pick. I felt so bad for you because we were at Bumpa's that particular draft event. And
I'm still pissed about it.
It was in the back corner. There was one television that was faster by about 3-4 seconds, and it was quiet. It was a silent television, and you were not facing it. And I'm just watching Goodell's mouth move, and I'm like, is he going to say Quentin Nelson?
Yeah.
Like, his mouth move. Sure did. And
But
I
we
thought,
kind of knew.
here it comes. Oh, this poor man's about to be crushed.
Well, we were 1 pick away.
I know. Oh, I internally was too, but I knew it mattered far more to you than it did to me. And I was like, oh, this poor guy. He doesn't know. Here comes the news.
Who's the player that you've been most wrong about coming out of college? Because the player that I've been most right about coming out of college was Quentin Nelson. I screamed it before almost anybody else that guy was going to be a perennial Pro Bowler, Hall of Fame caliber, dominant badass. And that's exactly what he's been since the day he arrived in Indianapolis. But we don't often get to celebrate those moments. Most of the time, it's something that falls just short of that. Like, you can look at a guy in college and everybody, let's just find a universal guy, like a star wide receiver or a star quarterback. Most of the time, that's noted for a guy not necessarily living up to that. And then there are dudes that are kind of can't miss that everybody agrees upon. But then there's the guy that you thought, and I thought, and we all have that moment, I think this guy is a star. They just don't see it. What's wrong with people? How is he projected to go that late in the first or early in the second? He's a can't miss, like we got it right with Russell Wilson. But there have been countless guys that I absolutely got it wrong about. That's everybody. That's NFL execs. That's GMs. That's talent scouts. That's all of them. They all whiff because it's an inexact science, as they say.
Taylor Mays from USC. It's an easy one. There was the great Taylor Mays, Eric Berry debate, and I was on the Taylor Mays side of things because he looked like the new hybrid player. He was bigger and fast. Well, not as fast, but he was bigger and stronger. And so I thought he could have an impact like a Cam Chancellor ended up having.
Right.
Nope.
No.
Nope.
No.
Wrong. Now, if it's any draft ever across any sport, it's Steph Curry. That's easy. I thought that little runt had no chance.
Well, I would agree with that, yes.
Yeah.
But it turns out he's preternaturally good.
Well, turns out the game changed, too, to help it. But, my God, he could create his own space.
He also helped
5
usher
inches
that
taller.
in. Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah. No, you're right about that. Yeah, sometimes it's due to injury. You know, I mean, we didn't plan this talking before the show, so I don't have the list of guys. I do this all the time as we get closer and closer. I can actually go back through the drafts. And now, when you're my age, you can go back in the draft 30-plus years ago and remember guys that you're like, oh, I really thought he'd be good. That didn't turn out to be that way, did it? Oh, that guy actually turned out to be a lot better than we all thought he was going to be. You know, played for 12 years, 5 Pro Bowls. He was good. You know, there's all those guys. But I missed on Peyton Manning. You know, I didn't think Peyton Manning was going to be great. Certainly not like top 10 quarterback of all time great. I didn't see it. I just didn't see it. I didn't love his throwing motion. I thought he was goofy.
That's an interesting name to bring up on the heels of a Deshaun Watson segment. Just saying.
Well, that was I don't know that you want to.
I understand.
If what's being alleged,
there's 14 instances in the previous segment.
Well,
but,
there's also. Yeah,
different times.
Also, the nature of what's being alleged is different as well.
A little bit.
Yeah.
But still interesting. Be covered a little bit differently today.
It would be covered very differently today. Just be careful about lumping the two as quite the same.
No, it's not on the same scale.
No, not in the same scale.
It's amazing
and also not the exact same accusation.
It's in the ballpark.
That's pushing it. It's kind of in the ballpark. It's not quite in the ballpark. One's got some things going on. The other doesn't.
YouTube knows that.
Oh, boy, that's fun. We'll take a right turn. It's the Jeff Cameron Show, 97.9 ESPN Radio. the Jeff Cameron Show, at least for today. Thanks for tuning to it. It is a glorious Lawn Maintenance Tuesday, both in mood, also weather, overall attitude. I think everybody's feeling pretty good about themselves today, right? We're online, ESPNTallahassee.com. That's where you go to listen live via the streaming free always. Don't miss anything. If you do, got you covered. We'll post all 3 hours of the show on Apple Podcasts. Wherever you get podcasts, you can find that. You can also email us, jcs at 979espnradio.com. On Twitter, it's at J Cameron Show. We're back on YouTube. Hello, YouTubers. Quickly, for those that reached out saying they like the conversational tone and format of the 57 minutes we posted yesterday, we're going to be doing more of that when we can. It'll kind of supplement what we do here as a radio broadcast. And on days, there's a lot of weird stuff going on right now behind the scenes. As you get into summer, this is when you kind of get some things done from a technical standpoint with the radio station, and just boring stuff that I don't want to bother you with. But as Tom and I occasionally have to navigate what days off we have, both for summer vacation, and this is all after spring football and everything else, but also work that will be done on the station, I think we'll just be able to, more often than not, find some time to sit down and have a conversation like that. If you haven't gone and listened to that, you can. You'll hear us say that we think Florida State's going to lose to Colorado, which we reiterated in the Tallahassee Game Day Court Report. But you'll also just hear a conversation that's more podcast in form. And that's fun for us to do, and I think it might be easier. These days, everything is a little bit easier when, if you need to, you can record on your computer via Zoom or whatever you want to use. Tom can do that at his house. I can do that at mine now that we have a reliable way of doing that. We could just meet here in the studio and do it. So anyhow, point would be we'll be updating content quite often, and it may even be tomorrow. I don't know. The schedule is kind of weird up in the air right now, trying to figure out some of the headlines. Corey was up in Indianapolis covering, obviously, the game last night, which I'm going to get to immediately. And he's traveling back today. I have a weird schedule tomorrow. Tom does too. There's some things we're doing that doesn't involve radio. We are going to have the headlines this week. We are going to have more Jeff Cameron Show content this week. But we're also in a charity golf tournament on Friday, raising money for good cause. So
The Junior League of Tallahassee.
Yeah, and all the good work that they do. And we play in this thing annually. So the bottom line is, heads up, the schedule is going to be a little bit weird. But you will have fresh content. It may be a little out of order this week, but you're going to have stuff. You're going to have stuff to listen to.
You'll have a court report and some JCS stuff on Friday. Sunday's tip is 5 o'clock. I've got to decide whether or not I want to play the court report before game one of the quadruple header, or if we want to just air it at 4 o'clock on Sunday.
What time does it all get started on Sunday?
A little after 2.
Yeah.
I think 1 o'clock is fair for the court report on Sunday, and then you could just listen to play-by-play the rest of the day.
You can always pull it up and listen to it whenever you want to.
Yeah,
too,
exactly.
Right? Yeah, you can
That's
do
the other thing. It's like, all right, if you're driving around, we got you, but we're going to make sure we got you before that you can just pull it up and listen to it on demand.
Yeah. So either way, we're coming at you from every angle, baby. We got you. You want to do a podcast thing? Got that. You want to do the radio thing? Got that. You want to listen in your car, driving around that day, getting yourself geared up for the game? Do you get nervous now, or are you playing with house money? I feel like you're playing with house money with the way we've played in the last month. Let's revisit this. Part of why I picked Colorado going into last night's game had less to do with Colorado. I know Colorado hammered Georgetown, but I'll admit two things here. A, I didn't think Georgetown looked like a very good basketball team when I watched that game. I did not see a lot of Georgetown in the regular season. And I didn't see any Colorado during the regular season. So I had no idea what Colorado was or wasn't, but based on the successes of the Pac-12 in this tournament and the fact that they finished third in the Pac-12, and we see how dominant that conference has been with the lone loss coming to Florida State, the ACC de facto champion, going through here and taking care of business yet again on their way to the Sweet 16. It certainly seemed possible that Colorado was a good basketball team, and I didn't know it. And that Florida State was certainly not, and this is not second-guessing, this is what we observed. Florida State was not their best version of themselves and haven't been for weeks. And I would argue that's still true. And that brings me to my next point. Man, have we really arrived as a basketball power And I've been saying this a lot, going back to the rant I went on earlier in the season where we've got to stop waiting for the other shoe to drop. That rant that turned into a promo. We talked a lot about how we're always second guess because we're young. It's like the nouveau riche, right? We haven't figured out what it means to be a consistently very, very strong and good basketball program. We're starting to realize what it means. And one of the things that it means is that when you're not at your best, you still beat people. This is like the Tiger Woods, and we're not Tiger Woods. If we start winning national championships, then we can start referencing Tiger Woods. But bear with me on the analogy. Tiger Woods would win tournaments, with his B game. And I remember listening to Jack. I've heard Nick Faldo say this. A few other all-time greats have talked about this. They say there's maybe a handful of golfers in the history of the sport that could win tournaments, maybe even majors, not playing their best golf. So hard to do. I mean, somebody is playing their best. The difference between the best player in the world and the fifth best player in the world is so nominal. They all have the shots in the bag. If you're not playing well, you usually get beat. Somebody in a tournament of 50 or 60 guys is going to beat you. Or you're transcendently awesome and your B-plus game is better than most people's A game and a few putts fall and you win the tournament anyhow. Duke used to do this. We haven't won national championships, so we're not quite at that level. Florida State's not playing well. They're not even playing well, and they go to the Sweet 16. They haven't played anywhere close to their best basketball in this tournament. They're going to the Sweet 16. They've been average to below average in terms of any sort of offensive rhythm. They have had to make do by dominating on the defensive end. Both these games, they were really good defensively, and they continue to be. And they're problematic if you're unfamiliar with Florida State, meaning if you're Colorado and you haven't seen them, if you're any team and you don't play them on a regular basis, you've seen it 2 games so far. The opposing team is pretty well overwhelmed to start these first 5-6 minutes of these 2 games, and they frequently are if you date back to 2 years ago, 3 years ago. They're a little bit overwhelmed by the length that's everywhere. It's everywhere. It's off the bench. It's out on the perimeter. It's in the backcourt. It's everywhere. And there's a depth of it and a skill that goes with it. When we're playing really well, it's coupled with very good offense. Right now, it's just average offense. It comes in spurts, and it's really born from great defense. Imagine if they put it all together. Imagine if they play really well against Michigan, meaning the offense joins the defense. Because then you're talking about what we were talking about earlier this year, which is that their upside, their ceiling is potentially a Final Four. And I think that's still true. And even though we picked Colorado yesterday, we did leave room for the possibility that Florida State could win this game, partly because of unfamiliarity from Colorado, and maybe the defense would spark the offense. Maybe somebody would rise up and make some shots. Turns out 2 people really sparked this team, I thought, last night. Malik Osborne early. And then I think certainly you saw the consistency of Anthony Polite, who Coach Leonard Hamilton's going to talk about here in a minute. We'll play that clip. But you saw those guys hit some shots, and everybody could decompress because right off the bat, 2 of them were threes. Okay, we can hit a 3 ball. That's good to know.
Yeah, this is a game that you could have run away with in the first 10 minutes if you didn't turn the ball over every other possession.
That's just who we are.
Because the offense itself, when you're talking about shots from the field and the efficiency, if there was a shot lobbed towards the basket, the efficiency was pretty good.
Yeah, it was pretty good, yeah.
But listen, yesterday's conversation, and I don't remember all of it because if you go 57 block format, I don't think you remember every word. If you do 4 segments, it's a little bit easier to remember each sequence. But Florida State, the one theory about Florida State is maybe they're just a team that plays to the level of their competition. Leonard said something again about that last night in the dais. I don't know that it was in the clip that we brought up, that we cut for the show. But he said, they had our attention. Okay, well, Michigan's going to have their attention too. That gives me more hope. But it almost seems like UNCG after the first, it's 23-7. They're like, oh, they got nothing for us. But then they lay an absolute egg. And if you combine the performance against UNCG with Georgia Tech and then the roadie against Notre Dame, you're talking about 3 out of 4 games in which you suck. By our standards, by what they showed 2 months ago, not good at all. However, last night, the offense, I thought, played quite well and more efficiently in the second half. But the defensive ability to extend and contest 3-point shots, that was the key. We did talk about that in both the long form and the court report. a lot of the media today I saw are talking about the ball denial on McKinley Wright.
Yeah.
To me, that's not – you could do that. You can double anybody you want, right? But it's the consistent ability to contest outside looks and make them uncomfortable. It's night and day if you look at the Georgetown game and what we did. They were not comfortable shooting threes, and they were number 2 in the field in this tournament in catch-and-shoot unguarded threes. We did an exceptional job of extending out and challenging them throughout the game. And you know how much concentration and effort and energy that takes? That's why Nathaniel Jack was important in this game. That's why more players than you're used to seeing were in the rotation, because it takes that much damned effort to be able to pull those two things off at the same time. What's the more dangerous thing? To me, it's guarding against them going off for another 12 threes. I was so enamored with what they did against the three-pointer last night. It was excellent.
A glimmer of hope, too, offensively stems from shots that we didn't make but took. And I don't know if you saw this, and this is kind of a little behind baseball, but if you are – listen, I'm going to give myself credit here. Go back to the conversation yesterday where we talked about you can't pass up certain shots because now you're hampering the ability to just basically run the offense. I don't care. I mean, I'd like you to make one every once in a while, but you can't just decide not to take the shot. That has to, and I talked about how players know this. They understand this. I used Ben Simmons yesterday as the example that when you refuse open looks, defenses now are playing 5-on-4. They do not have to guard you because you've shown them your cowardice. You're not going to shoot it. I don't even need to step out towards you. You're afraid. You're going to defer. That changes how teams, who they double off of, what they can do. And that's why the look RaeQuan Gray gave MJ in the last game when he passed up the wide open three from his favorite spot on the floor and then instead rushed a three baseline to RaeQuan falling out of bounds guarded. He was livid. He stared at him for a while as they were walking off the course like, man, like, that's not what you do. You made me look like an a-hole for starters. And secondly, you can't do that. So go back to last night. I don't know who got in the lane. It might have been Polite. It probably was Polite. But he kicks back to RaeQuan Evans, who I have ripped in for good reason. He kicks back to RaeQuan Evans with a straight-on three, and Evans shoots it. Now, he doesn't make it because, of course, he didn't.
Yeah, that was the one that bounced over the backboard, right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
But he took it.
Right, yeah.
And he took it in rhythm. My wife looked at me like I'm crazy because it's such a brick. And I go, there you go, RaeQuan. She's looking at me, and I go, I'm not going to take the time to explain that. And I'm not trying to belittle you. I'm just telling you that's important. You got to take the shot. You got to take the shot, man. And that portends of maybe, just maybe, a couple of guys about to come out of this. Now, one can hope because we're moving into the Sweet 16, and you're going to have to make some of those, not just be willing to take them. You're going to have to make some of those against Michigan. But I also saw a couple of moments where the recently hesitant Scotty Barnes attempted to get in the lane and create. Okay, there we go.
Yeah, one of which was a BS offensive foul call.
A terrible call.
My God.
But okay, here we go. That's the guy that existed for much of the year that's been MIA for 2.5 weeks. Okay. Even MJ. Not great MJ last night. Not horrible MJ last night. Not nearly the MJ we saw at the beginning of the year, but a guy willing to get to the basket, get in the lane, change speeds, do things that set other things up. That's what I'm talking about with a willingness to shoot a shot. Even I don't care if you don't think it's going to go in. It sucks that you don't have the confidence to shoot that like you did earlier in the year, but you got to take it because you're going to bog down everything else. That happened last night, and listen, Malik Osborne woke up, right? Early in the game, there was a concentrated effort by Malik Osborne to be more aggressive. You don't think that came from the fact that they said to him, my man, are you just never going to shoot? Thanks for the 4 free throws last game, but, you're allowed to shoot. You're a good player. You can hit that shot. And when it went through the basket, you see everybody kind of relaxes. So I give him a lot of credit. Now, the night belongs to Anthony Polite, but we've seen Anthony. I know he had a career high by a lot. But we've seen Anthony have games where he can play that way, where he can knock down shots and get into the lane. And if you leave him open, he's going to hit the perimeter shot.
He was one of the few players I liked in the first half against UNC Greensboro. I mean, we started out well, but then there was such a crashing halt, and we were exchanging. I'm like, I like what Two's doing. You know, he didn't have a great second half in that game.
He stopped
yeah,
shooting.
That's right. He was the only person who attempted a three-pointer in the second half. It was blocked away in the corner.
Yeah.
But the thing was, I wasn't ready to pronounce the Junkyard Dogs back after an effort against a UNC Greensboro team that had nothing for us. They had nothing
they didn't have
for
any
us.
height. They didn't have any.
No, we found a way to make that game close. We had to work hard to make that game
that's a
close.
lack of confidence, yeah.
This effort, however, against this group in Colorado is extremely impressive.
Well, you beat that ass without playing your best basketball. So think about that. You win 71-53, and you're not at peak efficiency. You're not. You're still doing things offensively that just make you scratch your head, especially in that first half where we're turning it over left and right. The patience to rely on your defense until the offense comes around deserves a tip of the cap, and because it's hard to be patient where desperation exists. And by definition, in a tournament where if it's win or go home or lose or go, if you lose, you're out, desperation is in play. You have to play desperate. Everybody does. I mean, you can't, there's not another day if you don't win today. But it's hard to play with the sense of urgency and yet show patience. That is very rare. It's a beautiful thing when it plays out, but it's very rare, and they showed that patience.
Yeah, I think that was a big part of the rotation, too. Because if you're looking at it for, patterns of what we can do offensively, that'll drive you nuts, the way the rotation has gone the past two games. You're like, can we get any continuity at all? Like, I know that our strength is in our numbers.
Yeah, and I know what we're doing.
But there are sequences where it looks like there's an identity coming together, and then there's two dudes waiting waiting to check in. But it makes such a difference defensively because the effort had to be multifaceted. Yes, like everybody was talking about today, you've got to do a great job of McKinley Wright. And Leonard focused on it because 50 to 60% of the offense, according to our own metrics, runs through him.
Well, listen, if you're that kind of single-handedly, that's how you run, you're in trouble against us.
But the multifaceted part of what they do is, Batty, first of all, is a good player. He was in foul trouble. I think that was a key last night. But the threes can come from anywhere, and especially if you don't rotate properly and you leave somebody open. They knock down open looks better than almost anybody in the country. So you have to do two things at once. You've got to deny the ability for the pick and roll, but then you also have to rotate well enough and extend past the three-point line well enough that you've got a hand in the face all night long. That's hard to do for 40 minutes. Both those things, but they did it. They did it, and that means if you look at the Michigan scout, you have choices. You've got the post, not the point guard, but you have the post or you've got the three-point line. But now I know for a fact after watching this game that they can extend and challenge the three.
Well, they're committed to it again.
It just becomes a question of foul count down low in the post.
That's
the early scout.
Also got to make shots. I mean, we just have. I mean, you got to make shots, and I know eventually we got a lot of high percentage runouts and dunks and layups, and you're going to shoot well from the field when that's happening. But Michigan will defend better, and you're going to have to just knock down some shots, which we're capable of. Again, we're capable of. We haven't shown any level of consistency there. Another thing here, when we talk about this team and you try to put your finger on the pulse at all times, I am tooting my own horn here quite a bit, but that's not what this is intended to do. I talked about earlier this year, one of the things I thought about this team with the versatility was that they're better when they play quickly and they get the scores into the 80s. That we're hard to beat. If you're going to have to come with us into the 80s, you're not going to beat us. Where we got bogged down, I would go all the way back to the NC State game. We scored 105 points in that game. That's a yesteryear, but God almighty, were we good offensively in that game, right? Just go through and look at this. If you go back to January 13th, scored 105 points, won by 22. Scored 82 points and beat North Carolina because they couldn't get up there with us. They played well that game, North Carolina did, but they couldn't get there with us. Then we housed Louisville and could have scored 100, but we stopped scoring at 78 with our backups in late. Okay, so 78, win the game. That's basically 80. House a good Clemson team, score 80 points in that game too. They can't stay with us. House Miami, they're not any good, but we scored in the 80s in that game. One going away, another double-digit win. Then you see what we've seen, which is all of a sudden we go from this stretch of, come on with us, we're scoring in the 80s every night, you bitches cannot hang, to what's going on here? They suddenly begin to get wildly inconsistent, which breeds our doubts and our concerns about where we're headed. And I think it marries to injury problems for the team and the inability to practice consistently.
There's no doubt.
So Georgia Tech beats us by 11 on the road, 76-65. We played terribly in that game, if you recall, and it's a weird game. We're wildly inconsistent. In the 60s, we lose. Got nowhere near the 80s. We played terribly against Wake Forest and win that game after a couple postponements. I would have loved to have seen the Virginia Tech game.
That was a COVID break.
Yep, that was a COVID break. But then we come out and we play against Wake. Now, we do score, and that game was overtime?
That's overtime. That's Scotty ties it with 0.1 left.
Right. So we get lucky to win a game against a bad team.
Yeah, the one kid did better than Scott Wood. Remember that one?
He couldn't stop. He couldn't miss. But we do score in the 90s in that game. Granted, overtime to do it, but it's ridiculous. We don't play well. So it's a win, but I didn't like the win, but I did like the offense. All right. Then we house Virginia's ass. And you're like, okay, but guess what, guys? Scored in the 80s against Virginia. Most of the time, Virginia didn't let that happen. We scored in the 80s there. We beat them by 21. All right. So a little inconsistency has crept in. But once again, it holds true. If we score in the 80s, that's your ass. At this point, I've gone all the way back to early January, and anytime we've scored anywhere near 80, nobody beats us. Then we score 79 points against Pitt, win the game. Same thing, 80 points. Beat the brakes off of Miami, scored nearly 90 points in that game. Then we only score 70 points, and we lose by 8 to North Carolina. Again, then we score 90-plus, beat the brakes off of Boston College in a makeup game. Then we score under 80 and lose on the road to Notre Dame. It's a weird team, but I'm telling you now, I'll grant you that we scored under 80 again in the rematch against Georgia Tech. We lose that game. Mm-hmm. We win a rock fight against Carolina, and it's all defense, and neither team scores in the 70s and whatever, but we win that game, and we don't look good. We look terrible against UNC Greensboro, and we score in the 60s. There's just something about the rhythm we get into when we get out and this game gets into the 80s. Now, last night, I know we didn't score in the 80s. That's partly because offensively we were challenged yet again in the first half especially.
Dropped 50 in the second half, didn't we?
We went nuts. That game's on pace to score 100 if you do anything close to what you do in the second half in the first half. We scored 71. I'm just telling you, this is a team that's got to score somewhere in the early 80s to win a lot of games, big games, and I feel like it's going to be that way.
It'll be a really interesting style clash, though, with Michigan, because last night that's a high-scoring game, but LSU does not care to play defense whatsoever.
No, they're just trying to score with you.
That's correct.
And they can score.
They can do it.
Yeah.
They can win it that way.
Yeah.
We're playing much better defense right now.
Oh, we're locked in on defense.
The symmetry of the 2018 season and this one is growing. Like, it's becoming more apparent. Because remember, that
commitment to defense
came
out of nowhere.
Bad down the stretch. And then the defense came to life, and that's what got us to the 8 and within a shot of beating Michigan.
Yeah, 58-54 was the final there.
So, okay, if you're looking for symmetry and a reason, this commitment to the defense and the tone with which Leonard answered those questions last night has me hopeful, because I feel that he has been awfully giving. He's usually cloak and dagger, but he's been awfully giving about how he feels about the way we're playing and whether or not this team is committed and they're focused and the intensity. He challenges that all the time. Last night, effusive. 15 minutes of effusive praise because of their commitment to the defensive game plan, and it was unwavering and full of focus.
It's a great scout, and they played it exceptionally well and executed it exceptionally well defensively. They can be so much better offensively. I know, this sounds like the never satisfied parent pushing the child. I don't mean it to be. I know what it sounds like. Kid goes out, dominates, has a great game, but what happened to that one at bat? You go 4 for 5. What happened with the fifth at bat? I know that's what it sounds like. I'm just saying play to your ability, because if you play to your ability, you go into the Final Four. Like, if you play as good as you can play, and I don't know that we can right now. We may not be able to get there because of MJ's injuries and Scotty Barnes' injuries and the problems we've had there. I don't know. But if they can, they're Final Four good, which is something we said 2 months ago.
Right. No, it's the same. We said it yesterday. It's in there, but,
it's hard to know.
The evidence is not pointing to that showing up on a Monday night against Colorado. But it did defensively. And for me, personally, I'm watching last night's game, of course, wanting to win, but it's give me a reason. Give me a reason. Give me something to hold on to that says, okay, we're coming out of it. And it's not the offense. Now, if you look at our efficiency inside the 3-point line, lately, it's really good.
Oh,
like
on
it's
twos,
really,
on
really
twos
good,
were really good.
both offensively and defensively. But just give me a reason to believe that we can beat the 1 seed. The defensive effort alone is enough of a reason. We've got
remember,
a real chance.
And you're right about that. And I think we're saying the same thing. I'm choosing to look at the point totals near the 80s because when we get there, we don't lose. But I will admit, a lot of that's born from great defense. It leads to transition baskets. How many dunks, layups, 2-on-1s, alley-oops, lobs down low? I mean, it's hard. It's very easy to shoot well from twos when you're dunking or laying it off the backboard. And that's what we're getting. We're getting shots in the paint, in the lane, little runners, layups, those things at the glass. That's because you play good defense. You get a live ball steal. I mean, that leads to the Calhoun hammer. It leads to a lot of things that we saw last night. I mean, look at Polite's unselfishness at the end to alley-oop to MJ when he could have had a layup or a dunk himself. I mean, it's just beautiful when they do that, when they're that kind of unselfish. And it leads to easy baskets. We got to hear Ham. We're going to do that next. Jeff Cameron Show, 97.9 ESPN Radio. Well, obviously, we got excited talking about last night's victory in the opening segment. That'll happen when your team goes to the Sweet 16 yet again. Would have been 4 years in a row if last year hadn't been canceled. I'm sure of that. We'll never know. But instead, it's 3 straight years. And some of the platitudes describing this basketball program, the success of this basketball program, is something to sit with, is something to think about and get excited about. But I want to point something out after we get done listening to Leonard here. Struck me last night as I watched the end of that game. And it's funny when you're about to accomplish something and you feel really good about it, meaning, you know, the team you root for is, or program you care about, in this case an awful lot, you stay locked in even when the game is lopsided and you know you should go to bed. I mean, you're going to watch the ending. And the ending revealed something to me, which I'll tell you about in a moment. But here's head coach Leonard Hamilton.
Well, we've had games this year where we've played very good defense. We've had games where we've executed very well offensively. We've been a little up and down, a little inconsistent. But tonight I thought our players were locked in with our defensive game plan. You know, obviously Colorado is a tremendously high percentage free throw shooting team. They play good enough defense. They only put them on the line 11 times. And they've had several games this year, I think over 10 games, where they've shot at least 10 threes, made 10 threes in a game. So that's a tremendous challenge when you have to guard people on the perimeter to take away their three-point shooting. And then you have to make sure that you shrink the gaps because they got an outstanding point guard who probably is responsible for 50 to 60% of their offense. So we had to be locked in, not foul, contest shots. And that took a tremendous effort and a high level of concentration by our team. And that's why I was so proud, the fact that they continue to keep executing what we had in our game plan, even when they cut the lead right down to 1 point. Well, I'm so proud of Anthony because, you know, he had the shoulder injury there about middle ways this season, along with MJ and Malik and Balsa, as well as Scotty. And so we've been kind of limping around a little bit, and it's kind of thrown us off of our shooting schemes and not being able to get shots up and trying to get treatment. And so I'm hoping that, you know, with a little time off here now, it looks like we're getting back to shooting the ball where we were early in the season. Our defense, we kind of got healed up from some of the ankle turns and the little strains that we had. And so I'm hopeful that we can continue to keep getting better because we sure going to need it.
Well, that does make one hopeful. Yes, if they're getting healthy enough to be the best version of themselves, then maybe you'll see it. You know, maybe you'll see it on Sunday. We haven't seen it yet. And that gets me back to my other point, which is that, you know, Tom, you've made that point too, that how many great games, how many big Monday games like we had against Virginia do you need to have in order to get to the Final Four? And we guessed maybe at most 2 because of the way the bracket, you know, the draw was friendly. The draw was friendly, and we thought we matched up well. And now you look at these brackets and you see what a mess they are, and you really realize the opportunity is there to continue. Unfortunately, one of the 1 seeds has really had no problems, and Michigan is a really good team, and so we get to see them again. But that's fine. You're not going to get to the Final Four without having to beat somebody who's really freaking good. That was always part of the plan. That was always part of a tournament like this. You're gonna play somebody who's great, and certainly if you ultimately want to win a national championship, you're going to play more than one team that's great and have to find a way to win those games. Now, to my other point, I stayed locked in at the end of that game, partly to revel in their successes and to smile and to watch those guys that we are both, you know, emotionally invested in. You grow to know these kids, right? You get to learn a little bit about them and know them somewhat, but you also know, based on reputation, based on what Leonard Hamilton has proven time and again here and what he's built here, that he's bringing in good guys. You know, basketball, you don't hear about guys getting in trouble. And you do hear about them graduating, and you do hear about them coming back even after they leave, even if it's go to the NBA. They either come back for their degree or to work somehow with the program. They're high-character guys, right? So it's easy to root for high-character people. It's easy to root for people who are willing to sacrifice, who play unselfishly, who do everything that's right and play extra hard. And really, you know, that's what they are. So when moments like this happen, and we know what Ham is, a man of great character, when you see these games wind down, even if you're up by 18, you go, okay, well, I'm going to watch this because I want to celebrate with them. I want to smile. I want to see the smiles on their faces. I want to see their embraces. But something stood out to me last night is that there was no celebration. Florida State did not celebrate. Florida State very calmly shook hands with Colorado players and dapped each other and walked off the court. Man, think about that for a second. This program just punched its ticket to the Sweet 16 and didn't celebrate it. It's commonplace. That's just who they are. 3 straight years, well, really, again, would have been 4 if last year hadn't gotten canceled. In fact, the last time you saw them last year was as champions of the ACC taking a group picture on the court after the games had been canceled, and they were awarded the ACC title. They, of course, won it in the regular season anyhow. But they're used to winning. They're expecting to win. This isn't stunning to them. And I think for us still as a fan base, it is interesting to get used to this. It's hard. I mean, we just spent so long not being a great basketball program, and that when we had good teams, we would get there and we knew, we got to make do because we're losing this guy and we're losing that guy, and I don't know that we'll get back next year, and if we do, we probably won't go very far. Now you're a program that loses 2 lottery picks and another draft pick that's the heart and soul of your team. You lose the core of who you are, and you go back to the Sweet 16. And that's why they don't celebrate. This is just what they've grown to expect. They reload, and they're going to reload again. We know what's coming down the pike. That is really, really remarkable. The transformation is complete. Now it's about checking the boxes. It's about getting to the Final Four, winning a championship, hopefully, at some point. That's all that's really left. As far as firmly establishing yourself amongst the very best the ACC has to offer, they've done it. They are that. They are that. It took basically an odd set of games at the end of the season in which they stubbed their toe to lose the ACC this year, or they would have won it again. It was an anomaly the way, and really, frankly, injury led them to play poorly. And so, I mean, the not best version of yourself goes to the Sweet 16. The not best version of yourself finishes second in the ACC a year after winning the ACC. The not best version of yourself calmly shakes hands after walking off the court to go to the Sweet 16. That's amazing.
That's apparently the locker room as well after. Leonard did remark on that, too, saying one of the things I was proud of is they were quite calm. They were ready to go to the next one.
Yeah, on to the next.
Whatever has happened in terms of the focus level, and it could be just simply that one of this team's flaws was beyond injury, which are significant.
Yeah.
Injuries, the count is significant, especially the players in the rotation. Maybe if a team has their attention, they're locked in, and if they don't have their attention, they're not locked in. I don't know. I'm searching for a reason because other than injuries, I can't find a good one. But what I do know is the person who sees them every day feels pretty good about where their heads are at right now.
Yeah.
Heading into a week-long, I mean, you're still stuck up there in Indianapolis all week, but Leonard feels really good about where their head was at after this game. You saw the thumbs up he gave everybody on the bench. You don't typically see that.
Yeah, and I think, too, by the way, I can accept. I think we get to a place, and I've been kicking around this in my head, like, what are my expectations? What do I expect from this program year in and year out now, and what do I expect when we go into tournaments? I feel like I'm pretty level-headed most of the time about understanding that tournaments are just that. There are fluke results that can ruin your season like that. This tournament has once again reminded everybody of that. 1 seeds, 2 seeds, 3 seeds, taking it to the hizzy. I don't miss an opportunity to really appreciate these moments. And B, I don't, I would say I don't regret holding them now to a new standard to where they can be criticized when they don't play well because we expect them to go and win these games. They're too good. They're too talented. They're too well coached. Like, I'm holding him to that standard. I'm holding those players to that standard. And I like that they're holding themselves to that standard. That's just who they are now. We've watched this maturation process.
So last year they go down to Tampa and they play those 2 games. I think our attitude would have been, look out, here comes showtime.
It's we would have beat that ass, yeah. Right.
You get to the Sweet 16, who knows? But those 2 games in Tampa, you would have said, no, watch this.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, man, after the longer we're talking about it today, the more I'm thinking about it. Just the defensive effort. We got something for you now, Michigan.
We do. Yeah.
they could have played a little bit worse defensively, and then the spastic second half on offense, and I would have thought, I don't know what we got for Michigan. I don't know what answers we have. I mean,
Yeah,
I know there's potential in them to get to a place, but I haven't seen it. Last night was impressive, man.
If you get beat, okay, so here's where we've graduated to, and this is a good way to summarize it. If you get beat by a better team, then so be it. You can live with that. But as long as you're playing a good brand of basketball, a version of yourself that's committed, locked in on the defensive end, obviously I'd love for us to be healthy enough to be good on the offensive end. But if you just get beat because somebody's better, you'll live with that. You'll live with that. I was worried going into last night's game that we might lose to a team that didn't, on paper, look like they were better than Florida State.
Lose to a worse team.
Yes.
That's what it felt like on Saturday.
Yeah.
Greensboro shouldn't have been within 30 of us.
No, and 5 minutes into the game, I commented to Bryce, they don't have anything for us, man. This is going to be a long day for UNC Greensboro. And then when it wasn't, I was getting angrier by the minute.
10 minutes later, you're at halftime, and you're like, oh, God.
You're just
are these guys going to get domed up?
What are we doing?
Are they playing perfect? No, not even close. But are they punchless this weekend? Nope.
No,
absolutely not.
Fun game. I really can't wait for it. I wish we could speed through this week. That's all that's on my mind right now is the game against Michigan on Sunday. I don't care about anything else right now. I mean, I know baseball plays this week, but we're coming off an amazing stretch. Football is right there in the middle of spring practice until we get to that second scrimmage, till we get to the spring game itself. And listen, I already kind of have a sense that I don't think we're going to learn a ton this spring. I'll just be honest with you. Just as an aside.
Did you fall for it again?
I didn't fall for it. I just don't think you're going to learn a lot right now. You got one quarterback that's trying to learn the offense and another one that's taking a step forward. I think the overall assessment I have of the team is that they don't have a ton of good players. So, that's just kind of where we sit.
It's Michigan week now. I feel like Brady Hoke. I kind of like our running game. I wish we had LaDainian still, but those backs are versatile.
I do like our running game.
We've got a little bit of meanness to us up front on the offensive line.
Let's focus on this basketball team. We got a really good basketball team that's doing special things, and they're setting program records. We'll come back, wrap it up. Jeff Cameron Show. fun hour, fun show. I don't mind redundancy when it involves greatness. Talk about basketball this segment, that segment, this segment again, the one after that, and many more.
Nothing stops this train. Nothing.
Well, and it's funny, another example that helps illuminate how invested we are and how excited we can get about basketball around here, and that is I'm watching the game, I'm watching it play out, I see the win, my wife and I hug one another, go to bed, wake up the next morning, that's today, and I say to her while making coffee, you know what we have coming in next year? You should see some of the kids we have coming in. This team, they're going to be way better next year.
God forbid Raekwon says, you know what, I'm going to run it back.
Yeah. I don't think there really is a reason for him to, though. I wish I'd love him to, but I mean, he's good. He's just good. It's fun. You and I were having a conversation yesterday watching pro basketball and college basketball, and there doesn't appear to be a lot of guys in this tournament that you think are can't miss guys for the NBA. Kid at Oklahoma State is 6'8" guard. I mean, that helps, with that skill set.
He's talked about an awful lot, but yeah.
But I'm saying there's not like you could project him. You see where he's going. That makes sense. The problem is, look, everybody on our timeline or in an email or even my own son, they'll talk about Scotty Barnes being ineffective for the last 3 weeks or 2 weeks. And I'm like, well, A, did you see his vision last night as a passer? He was incredible. And B, guys, that's not how the NBA draft works. That's not how projections work. A guy doesn't have to be in college scoring 30 a game to be a good NBA prospect. Michael Jordan, go look at his career average under Dean Smith. First of all, Dean took the air out of the ball and played a just interminably boring style of basketball, and that should be talked about more. It was ridiculous. He neutered his athletes, including Michael Jordan. If you just went and looked at Mike's numbers, you'd be like, well, I don't know. But that's not how they do it. They look at a guy and they project what he's going to be based on body type, skill set, size, all that stuff.
Yeah, here's an easy example. Patrick Williams went number 4.
Right.
Patrick Williams wasn't dropping 16 and 10 every night.
No.
He's coming off the bench.
But you're looking at him and you're going, not many people built like that. Not many people that can jump like that. He's got the tools to be a really good scorer. He's already strong defensively. So when you look at Scotty Barnes, that vision and that body at 18 doesn't come down the pike very often. He's got to be a much better ball handler, and he's got to shoot the ball way better than he shoots the ball. But all that other stuff, man, that doesn't just happen. I mean, you don't get guys that look like that can do that. And then imagine what he's going to be when an NBA team takes him and all he has to concentrate on is basketball. He doesn't have to go to class. The amount of time that coaches spend with him is not limited because he's an amateur athlete, but rather he's a pro who's paid millions, whose job it is to sit his ass in that gym and get better every single day. Then imagine the leaps he'll take, given all of the other skills he has. That's how that works.
It'll be fun to watch, and that'll be right on the heels of MJ announcing he's coming back.
No. He can take it on down the road.
You sure?
Oh, yeah. No, he's done all he can do here, Tom. On down the road for you, MJ. We've got guys coming in, Tom.
Did you see all the charges he took last night?
I did. And I appreciated it. I did. Good work out of you. Good work, Matthew. Be well, everybody. Have a great night. We'll talk to you later.
Somebody